Well, lucky last. Good afternoon, everyone. And thanks for the opportunity to come and share part of our journey, the beginning of our journey at Patrician Brothers College at Fairfield with you in this very important area of parent and community engagement. You'll see from my first slide, and go back a little bit. If you look closely, you can see on the table there's a couple of glasses of wine. Punchbowl uses food to get the parents in. Fairfield, we use alcohol. But seriously, that was just at the graduation ceremony. We didn't do that every night of the training program. We are just down the road from Punchbowl, a little bit further north and west. And so if you were here for Jihad's presentation, I could just say in context, ditto. A lot of the situation at Punchbowl is very similar to ours at Fairfield. But just a little bit about that. Firstly, over the last 2 days, I've learned a lot about the way leaders in schools should engage communities and about strategic development of plans to get parents and communities involved in your school. I wish I'd heard that before we embarked on this program. So the example that I'm going to show you is a little bit of a not as strategic and not as planned as I would have liked. I wish I knew then what I knew now about all of that. But it is a bit of a stumbling approach to achieving some parent and community engagement. But nevertheless, there were some good learnings for us, and I hope that it provides you with some food for thought. Firstly, as I said, just a little bit about Fairfield and the place of the college. We are Catholic, as you can tell. Fairfield is located in the outer southwestern suburbs of Sydney. It once was a thriving market garden and farming area, but since the 1930s, it was populated by migrant families. And early in the 50s, those generous plots of land and gardens were divided up into housing commission and very affordable housing. So that prompted even further settlement by Sydney's poorest families, largely new Australians in the area. In fact, there were migrant hostels in Fairfield. It was at this time that the Patrician Brothers, in the early 50s, purchased a large parcel of land to create a school in which to educate the poorest boys of the outer western suburbs of Sydney. Just briefly, since the last census, not the one that we just held, but the one before that, the local government area of Fairfield had an average family income of $19,000. So as you can see, it has always been one of the poorest areas of Sydney, and it still is one of the lowest SES areas. And for that reason, we are a targeted school for Smarter Schools National Partnership Agreement funding for low SES communities. Our school population, we have 1,200 boys from years 7 to 12. 94% of those students are NESB or language background other than English, with many students at Phase 2 and early Phase 3 of the ESL spectrum. Many of our parents cannot read or write in English, and as Danielle said yesterday, we discovered also that many of our parents are not literate in their own languages, their native languages. Added to this, most of our parents work long hours, and many homes accommodate 2 or more families. For this reason, the college has attracted special funding, as I mentioned, and that's how I was employed, and that's how this program developed, under the auspices of the reform agenda. But despite that impact of that poverty and challenges of poor literacy, our parent community holds the school in very high esteem in the area. They are very aspirational families. They have high expectations of learning, and perhaps that indicates that their engagement is happening at home, even if we don't see it at the school. But they definitely see that formal learning is our job and not theirs. And they feel that it starts at 8:30 in the morning and it finishes at 3 o'clock when school is over. And this was one of our challenges. So what we did, we pursued a parental literacy program, and that's the example that I'm just going to show you this afternoon. So I'll talk a little bit about why we needed that, and then a little bit about what we achieved, what the outcomes were. Very briefly, the Patrician Partners in Literacy was a parental literacy program which ran for 8 weeks on a Wednesday night for about 90 minutes a week. So as you can imagine, it's a big commitment for parents to log into, and even though we started with 17 parents, we only graduated at the end 9 parents, and a number of parents dropped in and dropped out when they could make it because it was a very difficult commitment for them to make. That was a learning experience for us too. We won't do that again and expect parents to come along for 8 weeks at night time. But the program dealt with not only reading and writing strategies, but also communication, relationship building. Essentially, we were helping our parents with the strategies to be good parents, as well as developing their abilities to use language. We then moved on to cover study skills. We did NAPLAN preparation. We taught them how to use MacBooks and so on. One of the important learnings we had was that you need to get the parents in order to introduce a program like this. If you don't get them in at the beginning of the program, they're not going to last. And one of the ways we did that was not with alcohol, but similarly, we gave them all a laptop computer. And we said to the boys, and part of the rollout was, we said to the boys that you can't get the MacBook if your parents don't come and collect it. So it was a great way of having, for example, 99% of Year 8 parents in the hall at school at one time to listen to whatever you had to say, because they knew at the end that they were going to take home $1,200 worth of computer equipment. So that was a very effective way of getting them in and listening to what we had to say. And once you stand up in front of them and you point out the importance of parental engagement, and you point out the disadvantage gap that happens with literacy and why it's important for parents to help their sons with reading, mums and dads, and they're right there listening to it and they see a face and they can put a name to it, then they're more likely to become involved. As was mentioned earlier, sending notes home doesn't work. Putting notes in newsletters or emailing doesn't work. And even phoning parents, you still don't get that kind of belonging to the project. So what we did, we decided to work on a literacy program because we knew that we had a need for literacy development. Initially, our planning for this project wasn't really about the priority of parent and community engagement. It was actually designed to encourage parents to be better equipped to help their kids with literacy. And so our priority was about building the literacy capacity of parents in order to help the literacy capacity of our students. We knew from discussions early in 2011 that our students were underperforming in literacy, and that was confirmed by our NAPLAN results and other data. We needed to address that with the staff, and we did, around literacy strategies and ESL pedagogies. We developed a plan for the staff and for the students through our individual education plans. But the big question was, well, what are we doing to tap into that other vast resource that our kids spend so much time with, the home and parents? And a lot of our teachers said, you're wasting your time. They don't care, they don't want to know, they're happy to drop them off and leave the job to us. But I wasn't happy with that. I wanted to find out for sure. We acknowledged that our parents were the first teachers of their students, of their sons, and that the home is both the beginning and foundation of all learning. And in fact, as we said to them, they're teaching their kids much more complicated stuff than what we're doing at high school. They're teaching them morality, they're teaching them how to be human beings. All we're teaching is reading and writing. It's not that difficult. So the message that we gave them was very clear. We need your help in this partnership. We also knew that parents were very disengaged from the school setting. They felt like, particularly moving from primary to secondary school, because they realised that they thought that the rigour of what we were doing in high schools was much too complicated for them to understand. We knew from Candy's research that parents generally felt inadequate, and that particularly around the curriculum, and that they felt intimidated by the enormity of the high school structures and organisation. It's a very big place. There are 1,300 people on the site every day, and it's a very busy, busy place, and they felt intimidated by that. Many parents even reported feeling or carrying negative experiences of their own secondary schooling. So we also knew from the research of Harrison, Goodall and others that the key to improving student achievement was also to improve parental engagement, but parental engagement that had clear links to learning and learning outcomes. So that's what we focused on. So we faced the challenges. We decided that the best approach was to invite parents to a program which offered them practical strategies to help their sons with literacy. And in so doing, we were assisting our boys in the learning of literacy as well. we obviously continued to do the work with our teachers. So that's what we did, and as I mentioned, we had 17 and eventually a very strong core group of parents, mums and dads, which was significant for us, who came along each week and participated in different activities based largely on those that we would use with students. And we tried to keep it entertaining and fun so that they would keep coming along. In essence, we helped parents to understand the reading and the writing processes. We taught them a little of how the brain functions and how to promote learning skills. We trained them in reading strategies like pause, prompt, praise and SQR, if you're familiar with those. We even showed them how to use closed passages and 3-level guides with their boys in order to enhance inferential reading skills. The parents became learners again. They lapped up everything that we gave them. They loved it. And each week, between sessions, they would practice their skills on their boys. And I'd just like to show one little clip. I have a little clip of one of the parents who gave us some feedback on the program. Eleanor Takiri was one of the graduate parents from the program, and she has 4 children, 2 boys at our school. She said, the last time I did this kind of presentation was in Fairfield, and Eleanor came along to the presentation. She actually spoke at the forum. When I said to her, the next one's in Canberra, she said, Russell, I've got 4 children to cook and clean for. Take me with you. Anyway, I couldn't do that, so instead I asked Eleanor to take home my little flip camera, and she recorded this feedback for us. So just like to, there we go. That's great.
My name is Eleanor Takiri, and I'm one of the parents that attended the literacy program at Patrician Brothers at Fairfield. This program, we've gained a lot of knowledge and a lot of information which help us parents, helps our boys, and give them all the support that they need. We've gained a positive partnership in literacy with each other. And this is the teachers, the boys, and us parents to help our boys succeed in their education. In this literacy program as well, we gained knowledge and understanding with our boys about their learning activities at school when we attended classroom observations. These literacy programs allow us to take a look inside our sons' classrooms and observe their daily activities. At first I thought, oh my goodness, this would scare the hell out of my son if he saw me in the same classroom with him, but no. It turned out was the best day. It tells him, I'm interested in you and your learning, which makes a big difference, which contributes to their success. So once again, thank you all for listening and giving me this opportunity to share with you what we've gained from this literacy program. Thank you, and God bless.
So there you go. And incidentally, because Eleanor's eldest daughter had just graduated, she had just finished the HSC in 2010, and because she spends most of that homework time, the daughter that is, with the 2 younger boys, her daughter came along and did the program as well. So she was 18 and she was along for the ride, learning a little bit about the literacy strategy so that she could help the boys during homework time, which is, great value for us because we felt like we were reinforcing those fantastic family values of, cooperation and working together as a team. Some of the photos were just taken from the actual classroom visits. So the parents' part of the program was that they would come into the school and spend a couple of periods with their son in their classrooms. Some of them we couldn't get rid of. They stayed for 2 periods and then they just kept staying. So it was difficult to move them on. They were so engaged, they so loved it. But you should have seen them when they first arrived sitting in the school foyer. They were literally shaking, coming back into a high school and facing all of those teachers and students and all of those intimidating structures that they talked about earlier. Eleanor touched on some of the important outcomes of the literacy program. We did hope that parents would increase their capacity to deal with their son's secondary education. That was important, particularly in the area of reading and writing. We did hope that we could help parents with communication strategies and parenting strategies, and we found that a lot of them, even though they came along knowing that they were going to learn stuff that helped their boys, we did find that obviously we were teaching them literacy. We were teaching them how to read and write as well, and that was all just part of it. We did also envisage that parents would begin to be more comfortable with the high school environment, but there were some other unexpected outcomes along the way. Firstly, we didn't really anticipate the power of parental involvement on the actual boys themselves in the school. Our program obviously involved a classroom visit, and we expected a lot of angst, as did Eleanor, about having parents in their classrooms. However, what we found instead was that the boys were very proud of their parents being in the classroom with them. And in fact, a lot of the other boys would say, "Why isn't my mum and dad here? How do they get involved in this program?" And when I interviewed the boys afterwards, after the end of the program, I realised just how much of an impact this whole thing had on them. Some students, after the Wednesday night sessions, they'd come up to me on Thursday and say, "What did my parents get up to last night? What were they doing?" So they were very much involved, and they were very happy to have their parents here at school. One boy even said in an interview, he said, I'm glad my mum was involved in that program because she really needs to get out more and have more fun." And we really did have fun because we tried to make sure that the learning was engaging and interesting so that they would keep coming back, because it was important for us that they would and learn as much as they could. We also found that teachers at the school reacted very positively, and we didn't really expect that, as others have mentioned. Opening up their classrooms and realising themselves that parents were involved in a program to help their kids with literacy encouraged them to feel more connected and more responsive to student needs, particularly those ones whose parents were involved. Some of the teachers now have greater contact with those parents in their class who came into their classes, and the talk is not about the bad stuff all the time, which it may have been before. So when parents talk to teachers, it's more positive, and they focus on learning rather than about the negative impact of behaviour. We've also found that those parents, as I mentioned, hard to get rid of, those parents who were involved in the program suddenly started appearing everywhere. They were at the swimming carnival. They started coming to school celebrations like masses and so on, liturgies. And they would come to assemblies and things like that, and they would bring their other children. So it started to open this conversation much more broadly. And another important outcome was that opening of communication between parents and the college as a whole. At each of the meetings that we had on Wednesday nights, parents would raise concerns about their son's learning, things like assessment. And we were able to feed that back to important personnel back at the school to make real changes in the way things operate. And as I mentioned, one of the key examples of that was Year 7 assessments. We just all expected that when kids came to Year 7, they understood the notion of assessment and that it had to be done and that they had an assessment for every subject. Not that we were particularly happy about that. But this forum allowed us to rejig all of that thinking and to create integrated tasks so that there were fewer of them and communicate the tasks much more clearly to the students and their parents. What we found was that parents were basically re-engaging with the school, and it was only now that we were beginning to see that this had a positive spin and an effect on our level of parental engagement in the school, and that we started to meet that reform agenda number 6 in the SSNP agenda of parental engagement. So as a team then, we started to look for different opportunities to continue that momentum and involve our parents as much as we could. And we began by asking them at this Partners in Literacy program, we started asking them what they think that they might like next to continue the momentum. One area that they felt they needed more support in was numeracy. So later in the same year, at the end of 2011, with the help of our maths consultant and in conjunction with another school, we developed a whole-day parental numeracy program called Working Mathematically. On the day, parents worked with their sons on numeracy projects. They were supported by the maths staff and the coordinators at the school, and the day was really successful. It opened up learning opportunities for a whole new set of parents because they were different, and it also gave us the opportunity to link with another school and to start to develop that networking. So I've got another little clip of that program working. It begins by having a little bit of the actual project so you can see what it's all about, and then it moves on to getting some feedback from the parents about what they thought was valuable about that. It's only a couple of minutes, so we might just close with that one. There we go. On your table is, first of all, the Working Mathematically handbook. Each of you has one of those handbooks. And if you just open to the first page of that, it'll give you an idea of today's program. So just a little bit of housekeeping then to begin with. This morning we begin with a couple of sessions, and then we have morning tea, and then we'll split. So the students will go with one of the coordinators, and do some work on a project, and the parents will stay and work with a different coordinator on a different project, and then we join back together in the afternoon. Now the trick is that all of those questions are related to numbers or have something to do with maths. And in a moment I'm going to invite you to go up into the area at the front again where you were standing earlier this morning, and to move around the room. You have to actually ask people and talk to people. You have to mix up. You can't repeat a name, so you have to try to put a different name in every box. So for example, has a son in Year 8. That's going to be easy. It's going to be very easy. I think half of you have a son in Year 8.
Thank you. That's all right.
Hi there. Do you have a son in Year 8?
No.
Do you have a son in Year 8?
I do, yes.
You go.
Sue Ellen? Yeah, I think I'm right. Does your mobile number start with
We've got a mobile number that starts with 041.
To have more than $20 on It's just a game really where all the questions related to maths and real life. It's about communication. It's the key to everything that every teacher here at Bankstown does, because it's about opening up that relationship with students. Because you can't teach someone unless you get to know them. And you can't learn from someone unless you know something about them too. And teachers need to share a little bit about who they are with their students in order for their students to feel like they can learn something from them. That's really important. It's all about communication.
Wheels? You're making double quantity, please.
Is that right?
You know the measurements. You've got to add up 1.5 times.
Need 1 spoon measure. Okay, 1 weighing scale. What about down here, Alex? How about we get what we need from down here? We'll need 1 fork.
There's enough. There should be enough there for everybody to try everything.
The purpose I come today because I want to learn more from teachers. So what is the most important thing to help my son doing mathematics at home?
To learn as much as I could about how maths is taught and what ways I can help Andrew with his maths at home, just to give myself a bit of an insight of what's going on at school these days, because it's been a long time since I've been in high school.
And I would say more or less the same, just to give me a better insight into enabling Alex to excel in mathematics.
I enjoy the atmosphere, parent around together and sharing idea with the teacher, and we pick up some good idea each other.
Having to make the actual food with my son and actually eating it as well with everybody else.
Yeah.
You like that too?
Yeah.
It's all about communication.
Meeting new people, learning new ideas about mathematics for him to learn. So he's picked up a few things where transferring like from millimetres to centimetres and centimetres to millimetres into metres. He didn't know how to do that before. He's picked that up today. So
Now I'm very good at it. I really enjoyed the hands-on preparation of morning tea, and I thought that was a really good way to apply maths in a really good practical setting, and it made sense to Andrew as well. It was good. That was good fun, and then of course eating the morning tea afterwards.
Yeah.
That was lovely.
And it's actually something I discussed with one of the teachers, that I think mathematics is important to be able to apply it in everyday life, and this was a good example. To assist us as parents to understand what they're doing at school through their computer work as well. Yeah, because the computers are so hands-on these days.
It's part of everything, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it's
everything
part of
that they
everyday
do, they're
life,
using their
so-
computer for.
Yeah.
So,
So basically the numeracy project that we embarked on was a spin-off from the literacy one. It was what they said that they needed next. And now we're looking for different ways, and as you saw there, Mrs. Tesserero, I don't know her first name, was the lady who mentioned that she'd like to learn more about MacBooks, and because we're on a one-to-one laptop program, so each of our boys has a MacBook, and the parents have sometimes no idea about what's happening on those MacBooks, and they therefore have no control, and sometimes they feel a little out of the loop. So the next part of our parental engagement program will be around training parents in educating them in how to use the MacBooks. So that's basically a little bit of a snapshot of where we're at. Another example is that at the end of all of that, we'd been leading our staff towards establishing a school-wide pedagogy and looking at what they believed made quality learning and teaching. So we went to our staff to begin that process of coming up with our learning beliefs. And when we formulated them, we then decided we'd take them to the parents. The principal asked the big question, as he always does now, what do our parent group think of this, or how can we engage our parent and wider community in this decision? So we invited a large group of parents and students to a forum and to discuss the future directions of the school and to give feedback on the learning beliefs that were formulated by the staff. The forum centred on what parents, students and teachers, we invited students as well, what they believe made quality teaching and learning for the 21st century. We conducted the continuous brainstorm activity. Parents provided such rich and exceptional insights into what makes quality teaching and learning that it surprised the leadership team as well as the staff of the school. And it gave us great confidence in going forward. The quality was so exceptional, in fact, that now we're looking for different ways to include parental engagement, perhaps in our teacher learning communities that we have at the school. There's small groups that take forward the learning beliefs. We're hoping that perhaps expert parents within our community will be able to contribute to some of those groups and bring real-world, authentic experience to the development of pedagogy at the college. Who knows where the involvement of parents may lead at Fairfield? We only know that we're very confident because we've seen the great benefits of having parents engaged in what we're doing in learning. The important thing now is, I think, that we're more open as a school, as a community, our staff and our students, to collaborating, consulting and involving parents in what we do. So we don't know what's possible, but we know that there are enormous benefits, so we're going to continue working towards that. So thank you. Right on time.